Justice. My name is Justice Epen, and I'll be your host today. Today, we're talking about homeschooling, how I homeschool my nibblings, what nibblings are, the books we use, and the methodology I follow. To start, we should probably define nibblings. Nibblings are nieces and nephews, but as one word, so you don't have to say nieces and nephews. I got this from a Quaker when I was living up in Boston. I lived in a Quaker commune. It's funny, I got called a social justice warrior earlier today, which is hilarious. They called me that because I wrote a piece called A Letter to Conservatives. Probably 5 years ago on my blog, I wrote this piece because I had already written a piece called A Letter to Liberals. And the letter to liberals was about the Second Amendment and how important it is and why they don't understand what the purpose of the Second Amendment is. You know, liberals think that the Second Amendment is so you can go hunting, right? Like they think that it's like so you can go shoot skeet. No, the purpose of the Second Amendment is to make it economically unfeasible for the government to become a tyranny, right? Because if the government becomes a tyranny, people will go and they'll start like shooting up MVAs and stuff. And it would just cost an incredible amount of money. And so as long as you have a highly armed populace, the government will never get too bad because they are highly armed and the people will mess the government up. And, you know, if there's a civil war, like, will you beat the government? You know, no, you won't beat them outright, but like guerrilla warfare works. And so like having a there's a reason highly armed populations are also highly free populations. Okay. There's a very strong direct correlation between the number of civilian owned firearms and the freedom that people enjoy. And then someone will be like, oh, well, what about, you know, Denmark? They're higher on the freedom index. Let me tell you something. When somebody references any kind of like index that comes out of US News, World Report, or whatever nonsense source, just laugh in their face and say, you trust the indexes, you absolute sheep. Don't even call them sheep. We should start calling people fish because fish swim in schools and are incredibly dumb. Sheep, that's a compliment. Okay. If you're a sheep, if you're a lamb of like, if you're a sheep in the flock of the Lord, I like sheep. I think we should all like sheep. I feel like calling these people who believe in this stuff sheep is an insult to sheep. So let's start calling them fish or something else. Where was I going with all this? Oh yeah. How I homeschool my nibblings, nieces and nephews. All right. So just a little bit of background here. I don't have any children. I'm single. I'm 30. I don't have any children. So it's not like I have a ton of very deep knowledge in raising up children from like 0 to 18. But I do have 13 years of experience in the Maryland public school system. I went to a blue ribbon public high school, which means it was one of the best top 100 public high schools in the country at one point. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them that in my public high school, I had 4 different teachers with doctoral degrees. I referred to them as like Dr. Hartshorn, Dr. Handy, etc. So it was a very, very good public school. Okay. In the public school that I went to, I probably learned a lot more than you do learn at an average public high school. You know, I took a civics class, for example, and I learned about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And I had a couple of teachers who really cared about nonviolent direct action. And so I learned a lot about Gandhi and Martin Luther King. I had great English teachers. I had a terrific honors ninth grade English teacher. Honors ninth grade English was considered the hardest class at the high school that I went to. And it was because Dr. Nelson, who I think is now retired, so hopefully I can say his name, would teach you how to diagram sentences meticulously. And in the process, he would also make you read things like the Iliad. Now, if I'm being totally honest, I was a terrible student. I skipped class. I don't think it's exaggerating to say I probably did my homework a dozen times in 4 years of high school. Like personally sat down and did my own homework. I copied my homework constantly. I skipped class. I skipped school. I was partying and doing everything wrong. Okay. I have no virtue or merit to claim. So I was just as wicked as one could be, and I'm still pretty bad. I'm not even going to pretend. It's funny because everybody thinks I'm so like egotistical. Like I really have no like honor. Like it's just, I'm a disaster, but I just know some things and I just say what I think is true. So I hope that's what you guys like. So I went to a really good high school. I know a thing or two about what a good public school experience would look like. In that experience, I can't tell you, I got into countless fights. I learned how to curse. I learned how to party. I learned how to do drugs. Overwhelmingly, my experience of public schooling was a focus on partying, socializing, and athletics, with academics merely serving as a way to waste my time. And it did exercise the muscle in one's mind, which is how to do the bare minimum, or the 80-20 principle. If you're familiar with the 80-20 principle or the Pareto principle, what it is it's an economic principle that 20% of the inputs produce 80% of the outputs. So I learned about this in high school. I did take an economics class in high school, though. I learned this principle outside. It's so funny. Like I learned a lot about economics in high school just from reading. And then in my senior year, I took an economics class from this complete idiot who didn't understand economics at all. And so he would have us do these tests, and because he didn't understand economics, he would grade us from his understanding. So I would deliberately write just from his point of view so that I would get A's. And then this, I'm not even joking. I'm not making this up. I remember one time we submit our exams, and he says to me, or he announces to the whole class, because he hated me. I had him in 9th grade, and I had for a class called Living in a Contemporary World. And then I had him again in 12th grade for economics. And he kicked me out of class every single day. Econ, we take an exam. He announces to the class, I was going to curve your grade, but because Justice was the only one who got an A, I decided not to. So that everyone in the class would be mad at me. And so that's the type of high school experience that I got. My point is just saying that even in the best case scenario where you have a really strong public school system, the vast majority of the output of that public school system is going to be drugs, partying, athletics, and the academic curriculum is going to be a distant 3rd, 4th, 5th place for most of the students. And in the process, they will be exposed to things that are just not good. I mean, it's taken me years to recover from the deleterious effects of my public school education. Now, on the homeschool side, I became rapidly pro-homeschool over the last several years. It's happened in a number of ways. In the beginning, probably 10 years ago, like when I was just getting out of high school, I started to realize I had friends in high school who had come from homeschooling. So my best friend in 9th grade had been homeschooled up until 9th grade. And his sister had been homeschooled up until that point. And I started to realize that these people were way nicer and like better adjusted than other people. And then when I joined the church 5 years ago, or I started going to church 7 years ago, probably, I would meet a lot of homeschool families. And again, I was struck just by how kind and sociable the kids are. I remember going to a church meeting, and we pull in and we don't know anyone. It was an annual meeting far from home. And we go, all the way to Memphis, Tennessee. We go to Memphis, Tennessee for an annual church meeting. We pull in, we don't know anyone. We're strangers. We're new to the church. And we pull in, and this little kid whose name I remember, and I still know him well. He's now a much bigger, like, I think he was probably in 8th grade when this happened. And now he's got to be going to college probably. He runs up to us in the parking lot. He introduces himself, shakes our hands, looks us in the eye and says, let me show you around. Let me introduce you to some people since you're new here. He's like a little kid. And I just began to realize that the number one reason people send their kids to public school, over and over, they will tell you this. Well, I don't want to homeschool because I don't want my kids to be weird. I want them to be socialized well. But the fact is, it's the exact opposite. That public schools do not socialize you well. They stunt your sociability. They stunt your socialization. You're actually taught in public schools not how to socialize well, but how to socialize poorly. And this all occurred to me, I realized this. I had read this book, Freakonomics, which was very popular, and the authors are, liberal economists. And they point out that where people learn when they are in school is from their peers. They get a lot wrong, but they pointed this one point out, and it's true. They learn from their peers. So in a homeschool environment, you're learning from your siblings, who may be older and younger than you, and you're learning from your parents, who are the people that you're spending the most time around. You're learning from, if you're in a homeschool pod, you're learning from your pod mates. If you're going to a church school, you're learning from your church members and from the people who are teaching the church school. So you're learning from the people that you're around. And when you're around adults, as a larger percentage of the people that you are spending time with, you will learn how to behave more like an adult. This also applied to me. One of the few things I learned in high school that had nothing to do with high school was how to socialize with adults. How did I learn this? Well, my mother was a mortgage officer, and my dad was the chief information officer of the county that I lived in. So they had a vibrant social life. My mom was constantly doing business. My dad was constantly doing political type things. And my mom was also very political and active in the political sphere. So we were doing lots of socializing. My dad's Indian, and he loved to take us to like Indian family homes, not our family, but other Indian families. And so I went to a lot of parties, and my parents would made me go to parties with adults. And I was forced to sit there and interact with adults when I was, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way through high school until I went to college. And none of that had anything to do with high school, with my public school. It all had to do with going and spending time with adults. Today, when I meet little children, for example, I'll go to church, and, you'll have the families where it's actually hilarious. I can't call out my church brothers. Let me just put it this way. You get some children, my brother's kids who are homeschooled, they will go during the right hand of fellowship. The right hand of fellowship in a primitive Baptist church is when everyone walks around and shakes everyone else's hand and just says, "Good morning, God bless you. So glad to see you. I enjoyed the sermon this morning, Pastor Bloyd." So when we go through the right hand of fellowship, there are two types of children. My sister-in-law's children, who will run right up to you, shake your hand, and say, "Nice to meet you, sir. Good morning, sir. God bless you, sir." And then there are the children who look down at the ground. They don't want to shake your hand. It's like, well, why don't they want to shake your hand? Why are they not being socialized to shake hands, to look people in the eye, to communicate with people? These are the types of questions that we need to be asking ourselves. And what are they learning in a public school? Are they learning in a public school how to speak to adults, to understand it? Everyone's like, stranger danger, stranger danger. I'm like, the best thing you can do for your kids in order for them to understand the actual danger of a stranger is for them to understand adults as a group, which is to say, to understand human beings. If children understand that human beings are fundamentally depraved and sinful, you have to be careful around them and you shouldn't trust them. Those are good things to learn. It's also a good thing to learn how to interact with someone, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and say, "Nice to meet you, sir. Let me show you into the church and introduce you to the pastor." Just a good idea. That's what comes out of a homeschool education. So, which brings me to my sister-in-law and my brother, and my nibblings. I've got 4 nibblings. I've got 2 little boys and 2 little girls, and they're ranging from 3 to 8 in 8, or maybe the youngest one might be 2. Yeah, 2 to 8 in age. The oldest 3 are homeschooling. The oldest 3 are 5, 7, and 8, I think, or 5, 6, and 8. I've got 6 of these, so it's hard for me to remember. But, let's say 5 to 8 years old. My sister-in-law homeschools. She is a lovely lady, extremely nice. I call her my sister-in-law. I ought to just call her my sister. I love her like a sister. I can call her if I need a favor. She can call me if I need a favor. We talk to each other. We're just good friends, and that's the way it should be. She homeschools her kids, and they are brilliant, beautiful, healthy, lovely little children. And so what they do, maybe once or twice a month, for a while it was every week, they'd come over to my house, and I would watch the 2 or 3 oldest, so that mom could run some errands or maybe do some work upstairs or whatever. Around the Christmas time, she did all my gift wrapping for me because that's like the type of thing I would ask my sister-in-law to do for me, since I'm a terrible gift wrapper and she's a good gift wrapper. So she brought the kids over and we do homeschool together, and I keep them busy, and I can keep them busy for 3 or 4 hours doing homeschool. And so how do I do it? That's what I want to talk about. How do I do homeschool with my nibblings? Well, they come here, they run to the front door, they give Uncle Danny a big hug, they take off their shoes, and they come down here in the basement. Okay, so we're in the basement around this little table over here. The very first thing we do is we say a prayer together. We sit down and we hold hands and we say a little prayer. We just ask the Lord to be with us in our learning, to be with us in our study of his word and the things that we're going to do today. We want the Lord to be with us in the way we interact with one another. This is just the beginning. It's how we frame the entire session together. And then it's a short prayer, but they understand that the focus is always on the Lord. Then we go to the scripture. These are little kids, okay? This is one of their Bibles. They've actually got all 3 of their Bibles here. This is one of these like precious memories or precious moments. It's a New King James Version. Look, if you're a King James Version only person, cool. Me too, okay? Like I read the King James. That's pretty much all I read. This is a New King James, okay? These are little kids. We can get into Bible translation sometimes. But this is pretty, and they like it, and it has pictures that are pretty solid. And the thing is, it really clarifies. So, for example, here are the 10 Commandments. Exodus 21 through 17. Here is, what is this? Proverbs 17. A friend loves at all times. It's a prayer for my friends. Dear Lord, please bless my friends today, while at school and while at play. Keep them safe both day and night. Lead them toward the way that's right. Help them to remember you and trust in you with all they do. Give their hearts a joyful song to keep them happy all day long. So this is beautiful. So in the beginning, I started just reading from the top of the Bible and expositing to these children and explaining to them and answering questions. Once we got a little bit further in, after like Noah's Ark and that kind of thing, and I would skip the parts that are hard, the genealogies, the parts that they're not going to understand or that's just going to be boring for them, but I'd focus on the narrative. And then after a while, I sort of zoomed out and I said, hey guys, actually, like this time today, we're going to do it a little bit different because we really want to talk about Jesus. And they would always ask about Jesus. And so we're going to talk about Jesus today. But I zoomed out and I said, hey, here's the whole Bible. It's not just one book. It's a collection of 66 books. And then the thing is that the 66 books of the Bible are actually like it's a learning opportunity for math, because you can show them the 3 columns of 9 and you can say how many, hey, there's 3 columns times 9 books in each column. So how many books is in the New Testament? 27. You see what I'm saying? Okay, now 66 minus 27, what's that? Well, 66 minus 20 is 46, minus 7 is 39. So how many books are in the Old Testament? 39 books in the Old Testament. So everything's a learning opportunity, but you're focusing on scripture and you're focusing on reading, and they love it. They love it. Now, so we'll spend like 10 minutes, okay, doing scripture, okay? A couple minutes in prayer, 10 minutes in scripture. All right, guys, take a quick break. Take a quick break. Go run around, have some time. These kids have short attention spans. They're really young. They just need breaks, right? So they take a break, they come back. What are we doing next? Hymn singing. We sing some hymns together. Why? Why hymn singing? Because the words in these songs, first of all, are beautiful, edifying, but there's another part of this too, which is that they learn how to read shape notes, and so that they can participate in worship on a Sunday. So that it's both reading and it's also music at the same time. Now, here's the thing, guys. Why am I so focused on reading? I'm actually at the end. I'll tell you why I'm so focused on reading, but we're going to keep going. So we'll do the hymn singing. Okay. It's almost like a break. It's artistic. We spend like 10 minutes in hymn singing. Okay. We'll take another break. We'll sing 3 or 4 hymns. I'll line hymns. Okay. Now I'm not very good at it, but lining a hymn basically means that you say the line, and then they sing it back to you. So, amazing grace, how sweet the sound, right? So that's the melody, right? But you can say, amazing grace, how sweet the sound. And then you sing, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I once was lost. So you do that a few times, they understand the melody, and suddenly they're memorizing Amazing Grace. We sing Amazing Grace at church almost every other Sunday, probably every Sunday, every other Sunday. They start to be able to participate in worship. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. I can't even explain to you how important this is. And they love it. They love the hymn singing. And they, most importantly, they see that Uncle Danny, my middle name is Danny. Everyone in my family calls me Danny. Now you guys know. You're practically family. Now you know. They see that Uncle Danny takes this stuff more seriously than anything else. Okay, so we've gotten the important part out of the way. We've gotten the scripture out of the way. What do we do next? Okay, well, first of all, if any of you are parents of like small children, you're already realizing, okay, sure, that's, 20 minutes of instruction, but, these kids are running out of energy and they're not going to be able to do much more of this. How are you going to spend a whole morning doing this? Great question. Well, first of all, again, reading always comes first. So the next part is, at this point, I'm gauging their energy. Okay. So the little ones get tired faster and they're just going to need more breaks, right? The older one, who's 8, she's able to really kind of keep up probably twice as long. So generally at this point, I'm trying to gauge, me and the 8-year-old, we need to focus on reading some more. Are the little ones going to be able to hang? If they're able to hang, here's what we're doing together. This is an amazing book. This is called the Book of Knowledge. It's an encyclopedia from, what year? I want to say 1911 or something like that. It's a really old book. I got it from the local history. 1912 is the most recent copyright of illustration. Does the book have a date in it somewhere? I mean, early 1900s. It doesn't matter. So early 1900s. There's 20 volumes of the Book of Knowledge. I don't know if you can get one of these, but it's a great book. And what it is it's just articles. It's articles, stories, poems, etc. And it's 20 volumes. And this is it's a homeschool curriculum in itself that you can trust because it was made before the woke stuff got started, well before the woke stuff got started. And it's got all sorts of valuable information and entertaining things in it. Now, I want to start, just to give you an example, we're going to turn to the Book of So in every one of these, there are a number of different topics, okay, or like headers, basically. You've got the Book of the Earth, which is the big ball we live on. The earth is always moving. The sun and his family. The Book of the United States. The land before the white men came. Explorers and what they found. The Book of Familiar Things. What is salt? The Book of Wonder. Does the moon pull the sea? So that's an article about the tides. The Book of Nature, Nature's Wonderful Family, animals that work for nature. The Book of Men and Women. So this is about famous people. The Book of Our Life. This is about biology, plants, etc. The Book of Golden Deeds. So these are stories of people that did good deeds, like the sacrifice of Father Damien, the girl who held the fort. The story of famous books. So there's the story of the Iliad, the War for the Stolen Queen, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, the Last of the Mohicans. So you could literally just go through this, and there's 20 of these books. So you could go through this as a homeschool curriculum. But I want to turn to page 93 because there's poetry in here, and it's amazing. When I found this, I mean, it's enchanting because there are things that are written here that are just astonishingly beautiful. This is something where the little ones might not get it. There are things that the little ones do get. Like the little ones might get, for example, winkin', blinkin', and nod. Okay, winkin', blinkin', and nod. Winkin', blinkin', and nod, one night sailed off in a wooden shoe. Sailed off on a river of mystic light into a sea of dew. Where are you going and what do you wish? The old men asked of the three. We have come to fish for the herring fish that live in the beautiful sea. Nets of silver and gold have we, said Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. The old moon laughed and sang a song as they rocked in the wooden shoe, and the wind that sped them all night long ruffled the waves of dew. The little stars were the herring fish that lived in the beautiful sea. Now cast your nets wherever you wish, but never afeard are we. So cried the stars to the fishermen three, winkin', blinkin', and nod. All night long their nets they threw for the fish in the twinkling foam. Then down from the sky came the wooden shoe, bringing the fishermen home. 'Twas all so pretty a sail it seemed, as if it could not be. And some folk thought 'twas a dream they dreamed of sailing that beautiful sea. But I shall name you the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. Winkin' and Blinkin' are two little eyes, and Nod is a little head. And the wooden shoe that sailed the skies is a wee one's trundle bed. So shut your eyes while mother sings of wonderful sights that be, and you shall see the beautiful things as you rock in the misty sea, where the old shoe rocked the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. If you're having trouble getting your kids to sleep, go read that, okay? So the point is just that there's a lot of great stuff in here. I'm sure that there are other resources like this, but I got to tell you, I went to my local historical society was having a book sale, and these people sold me the entire collection of this book from 1912 for $20, I think. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was robbing them, but I took it. Okay, so we'll see if we can get through all that. And at that point, the little kids are definitely beat, right? Like the little tiny ones are definitely beat. So at that point, you might have a little quick snack time or something like that. Generally, when the little ones are like totally burnt out on focused reading, I will say, all right, guys, time for art. And I'll break out the paper and the crayons and the watercolors, and the second oldest girl will go up with the boy, and these kids can just do art for an hour, 2 hours, just no problem. They love it. And everyone, like, I think everybody knows this, right? Like, if you have kids, certainly you know drawing, coloring there's no upper, like, they can get enough of it, obviously, like in one block, but it's reliable. They will be glad to do that. So I'll hit them with the crayons and the paper, and I'll send off the younger ones to do that so that me and the oldest one can focus on reading a little bit more. She's still got some gas in the tank. And what are we doing? We're reading out of a chapter book. I didn't get it right here, but I on this shelf, I've got Animal Farm. Animal Farm, okay, by George Orwell. Animal Farm is the type of book that an 8-year-old, because it's thin, it's paperback, it's about animals, but it's an adult book. But she gets it because it's simple and it's a parable. And yeah, there's a lot of words she doesn't know, but we just sound them out together, and I explain what they are, and we just stay focused on the story, and she loves it. And we'll do that for 20 or 30 minutes while the other ones are upstairs doing art time. And by the end of that, you know, she's probably got 30 minutes in the tank for like a serious, like, we're going to read and we're going to work through words. And I can tell when she's really losing it, when she's just not able to focus any longer. And so by this time, now this little girl, by the way, is like highly literate she just turned 8, and she is now like highly literate for an 8-year-old. And just for reference, like the way okay. So where did I get this methodology? You're probably asking. Why are you so focused on, you haven't mentioned any of the other subjects. You haven't talked about science. You haven't talked about writing. You're right. I don't think about any of that. When the kids were first born, I wanted to know how to homeschool, like how to educate children. I wanted to understand a little bit of pedagogy. Especially once they started getting old enough for Amanda's my sister-in-law, for Amanda to start talking to me about this type of thing. And I was like, oh, I would love to like help with homeschooling. And she had told me about these books she was reading. And I said, I'm going to go off and read some books too. And the most important book that I read, I want to share with you. Let's see if I've got, gonna get rid of that. So I'm just pulling up my Kindle for you guys to see. Okay. So this book is called The Well-Trained Mind. And it's a really good book. I can highly recommend it. It's about classical education at home. So we were going to talk to Jeremy Tate today. Jeremy Tate is the founder of the Classic Learning Test. It is an alternative to the SAT designed to encourage learning about important things and not woke things. So at a very high level, what is classical learning? Now, obviously, I'm kind of pulling this out on very short notice. So if you would be so kind as to forgive me for not having everything ready for you. The first thing we need to understand is the trivium. Okay, so the trivium is, let's search the web. Banned, of course. Yeah, so classical education is based on the 7 liberal arts, and the trivium comprises grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they are in that order. So it's basically reading, understanding, and then expression is one way of putting it. So in the early years, you want to focus on these things. If I go back to my Kindle, and you guys can't even see what I was just looking at, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. That's the trivium. The most important thing in grades 1 through 4, the mind is ready to absorb information. Since children at this age actually find memorization fun, during this period, education involves not primarily self-expression and self-discovery, which is what you would get in a government school, but learning of facts and training in basic thinking skills, rules of phonics and spelling and how to use them, rules of grammar and understanding good sentence structure, poems, the vocabulary of foreign languages, the stories of history and literature, descriptions of plants and animals and the human body, how numbers work, and basics of mathematical thinking. The list goes on. So that is mostly what I focus on when we're in school together. And I told you, what are we doing? We're doing Bible study. We're doing hymn singing. We're doing children's like stories, articles. I'm reading out of this encyclopedia, and generally like what I'll do is I'll just I'll start reading off that table of contents page, and now we're in the second book actually, and I'll just say, hey, what sounds interesting to you guys? One of the books stories here is Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. So that's like the type of book story that we just turn to and read. And then sometimes I remember they really wanted to know, does the moon pull the sea? Does the moon pull the sea? What does that even mean? I remember reading that to them. They were like, what does that mean? Does the moon pull the sea? The moon does pull the sea, and it is pulling of the sea by the moon that makes the tides. In any great dock or port or harbor, we see how the water rises and falls twice a day. That's the type of fact that a little kid hears that and they just attach to that, right? So we're focusing on these things, just filling their mind with important knowledge. I'm focused on reading because of this book, sort of encouraging it from a classic orientation. I want to see. This is a good quote. The world is full of knowledge, and finding the links between fields of study can be a mind-twisting task. A classical education meets this challenge by taking history as its organizing outline, beginning with the ancients and progressing through the moderns in history, literature, art, and music, and by connecting the history of the scientific discoveries to the study of scientific principles whenever possible. 12 years of education consists of 3 repetitions of the same 4-year pattern: the ancients, 500 through 400, the medieval period, 400 through 1600, the late Renaissance through the early modern times, and the modern times, 1850 to present. 3 repetitions of the same 4-year pattern: ancients, Renaissance, early modern times, and modern times. That's a great format. No matter what topics they study or in what order, young scientists will spend their grammar stage years, that's the first stage, observing the world around them as you nurture their curiosity and sense of wonder. I'm just reading highlights out of this book because it's so good. In the first 4 years of learning, you'll be filling your child's mind and imagination with as many pictures, stories, and facts as you can. Your goal is to supply mental pegs on which later information can be hung. I want to talk about this point actually for a moment because I remember years ago, I was a huge Elon Musk fan. So this might sound surprising to some of you, but I was a huge Elon Musk fan just a few years ago. And I read his biography and I watched all the interviews. And one of the questions he was once asked is, how do you learn so quickly? Because he is literally a rocket scientist, computer programmer, billionaire, entrepreneur. And he said, well, it's all about a tree of knowledge. You have to basically, you need to learn from where you already are and branch out. And so having a dense tree of knowledge means that you've got many branches and that the branches have many branches. And to have a balanced tree of knowledge would mean, and now I'm not quoting Elon, I'm just sort of using the metaphor, but I might be an expert. And so one branch might be really deep, but I might not be very generalized. And so the rest of my branches aren't very dense. This method of learning is how I've learned over the years. Like I said, I was not a good school student, but I've always been a voracious reader. Meaning I've always read a lot. I've always really enjoyed reading. I've been reading chapter books since kindergarten. I've just been obsessed with reading for a very long time. I still read anywhere from 30 to 60 books a year, probably. So what's happening when you're reading is you're just constantly filling your head with facts, ideas, concepts, and it gives you mental pegs on which you can hang additional information. And so there's somewhere else in this book. Here. Yeah. So the key to the first stage of the trivium, which is the grammar stage, is content, content, content. In history, science, literature, and to a lesser extent, art and music, should be accumulating masses of information, stories of people and wars, names of rivers, cities, mountains, and oceans, scientific names, properties of matter, classifications, plots, characters, and descriptions. The young writer should be memorizing the nuts and bolts of language, parts of speech, parts of a sentence, vocabulary roots. The young mathematician should be preparing for higher math by mastering basic math facts and developing an understanding of arithmetical operations. So I said that we don't focus too much. We don't focus too much on science and math and stuff like that, but I do a lot of ad hoc problem solving in the vein that is mathematical in nature. People listening, so when you're sent to a government school and you learn math, you're taught implicitly that math is about numbers. But math isn't primarily about numbers. Math is about logic. The numbers are just the concepts that you're using to illustrate mathematical logical constructs, right? But, how do I put it? We don't have to use numbers to do math. You can use variables, you can use shapes, you can use really any abstract concept, as long as you're applying some sort of formal logical system to that concept, you're doing math. And so what does that mean? It just means that it doesn't necessarily have to be super systematic in your approach to it, because it's really about problem solving logically. I mean, there have been times so I was always really bad at school. I was really bad at doing homework. I was really bad at showing up for class. I was only good at two things. I was good at writing and I was good at problem solving. And so you're actually able to go into most math environments. And if you're good at problem solving, you don't even have to really study that much. If you understand what was being asked of you and the notation that's being used, you can generally reason your way through problems. Most of math in school is just learning notation. I would go into tests and I would just work out problem solving to get to solutions. And then, of course, in government schools, a lot of that is showing your work. I'll never forget, I cheated on my SATs, guys. In the SATs, you're never supposed to go back to a section that you've already completed. But I'll never forget, man, the very last question of the math section of the SAT was a question where it's a square with a shaded region. And I was just running out of time. I was trying to figure out, and I was like, oh, I can't figure it out. Like I couldn't figure it out. And I remember going to the bathroom and just being like, why? What is the answer there? How do I figure this out? And I literally am looking in the mirror when it comes to me. I'm like, oh, you dummy. You've been trying to figure it out using like decimals because the question was framed with decimals. But if you change the question to use fractions, it's suddenly much easier. And so I literally remember being in the bathroom doing the problem. I went back and I answered the problem in fractions because it was much easier using fractions. And yeah, so that's how I cheated on my SATs. I got a good score on my SATs, by the way. I think I got a 2040. Oh, by the way, yeah. Anyway, you can go look that up. And then, but I do have an excuse for why it was that low, which is basically I was partying the night before, so I showed up with 2 hours of sleep to take my SAT. Guys, I was a really bad student. I was bad. I was a troublemaker, is what you call it. All right. All right. As adults, we may tend to protect our children from memory work because we find it difficult and tedious. That's a great quote. In the early grades, you'll be telling your child stories, teaching him history and science books. Don't make K through 4 students dig for information. Protect their love of learning. Children who cry, sulk, or grow angry are probably asked to work at a developmental level they haven't reached. That is one problem I've never really had. It's just been they love it. The kids love school at Uncle Danny's. What else do I got here from this book? If you skimp on reading and writing, though, you're likely to hamper your child's educational progress. This is good. These are the preschool years: prep for reading, writing, and math. Birth, age 5. Start with 10 minutes a day for each subject, gradually increasing to about 30 minutes a day by age 5. Yeah, that's exactly right. This has been very much my experience, just teaching the kids a little bit. Okay. Oh, this is one more great quote. Talk, adult talk, not baby talk. Talk in complete sentences. Tell her what you're doing while you're doing it. I spilled flour on the floor. I'm going to get out the vac. I do this with the kids. They love it. I wanted to share this with you guys. We're going to get off this book for now. After we've done all of the school stuff, right? The reading, the hymn singing, the more reading, the art, the even more reading. At that point, they are like, I need a snack, right? So this is like, if they show up around 9, by 10:30, 11, they're like, I need a snack. So we do the snack, and I do the snack. It's so funny. I don't do snacks like any other. I'm not like, mac and cheese or cereal. I'm not feeding these kids like garbage. We will put together like a charcuterie board, and they love it because it's just meat and cheese and nuts and maybe some jam and then something maybe weird that they haven't had before, like sauerkraut. And so they get to try it, and it's very pretty, and it's kind of interactive, and they can make a mess. So I highly recommend charcuterie boards with kids. I also recommend them with adults. Everyone seems to love the charcuterie boards. Charcuterie boards are just Lunchables for grown-ups, but also kids love them too. And then at that point, it's like, hey guys, what do you want to do? If it's nice outside, we'll go to the playground, we'll play. But here's the thing, we're taking a walk, we're going to the playground, right? Maybe they want to go get ice cream. I'll take them to get ice cream at the frozen yogurt place. Maybe they want to go to the library. Okay, they often want to go to the library. I live walking distance from the library, and we'll go to the library. But the problem is the library is actually the worst option, because at the library, you walk into the children's section, and it's a bunch of stupid books written by I'm not going to say they're stupid people that wrote the books. I'm just going to say that they're stupid books. Okay, they're very stupid books. Children's books today are extremely stupid. Kids are smart enough to read chapter books from a very, very young age. They don't need to be given these dumb, like, picture books with just nonsense in them. Okay, I really can't stand it. There's a handful of really good children's books that are, picture books like that. The Giving Tree or whatever. But the vast majority of great reading material is reading material made for adults, and frankly, I think that kids can handle it. So I think you should just go straight into that. I think if you expect more, there's a it's called the Pygmalion effect. Have you ever heard of the Pygmalion effect? The Pygmalion effect, if I can get this right, I'm going to pull it up for you. Here's the Pygmalion effect. Can I please expand this for you guys? Is that possible? Yeah. So the Pygmalion effect is a psychological phenomenon which high expectations lead to improved performance in a given area. So again, okay, like the Pygmalion effect, I always remember this. Why is it that I always remember this? Because the effect is named for the Greek myth of Pygmalion, the sculptor who fell so much in love with the perfectly beautiful statue he created that the statue came to life. Okay, so Pygmalion is a sculptor, and he falls in love with the statue he made, and the power of his love animates the sculpture, right? That is such a striking concept, it's impossible to forget. This is how learning works. When you strike somebody by the power of the story or the narrative, it's almost impossible to forget. People are really good at remembering stories. They're really good at remembering locations. So those are just good things to remember when you're trying to teach people things. Whoops. How do you like that? Dad trying to steal my shine. How to ensure your daughter ends up. Yeah, that's funny. Okay. Alrighty then. What else did I wanted to share with you. So obviously, like again, I'll keep reiterating, I'm not an expert in homeschooling, but I do think I'm an expert in learning. Another great resource, one of the best homeschool families I've interacted with, who I've spent a lot of time with, and they really tried to encourage me. And I haven't gotten to do a lot of reading here, but I wanted to share with you. Charlotte Mason was a writer from the early 1900s, I believe. And she wrote, I think, 6 volumes on education, and it's a great place to study education is just from her books. The people that I've met that have been schooled under this method are extremely bright. I'm not sponsored, guys. I'm not making any money. I'm just sharing with you guys good resources. If you care about learning, if you want to learn, you should check it out. The Charlotte Mason is a great method. The other one, I mean, there's so many great learning methodologies. We could talk about this all day. And I'd love to just like hear from all of you guys. Let's check do a quick check on the chat. We're already 45 minutes in. My guys. Okay. Where were we? I'm starting at the top. Yeah, YouTube sucks and censors, so don't go to YouTube. You're probably right. Fees to homeschool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anything that helps get the word out to normies is great, in my opinion. So that's a pro YouTube comment. Maybe just a teaser, small segment on YouTube, get folks over to, hey, small segment. Yeah, that's a really good idea, based in Bless. Jordan, think about that, man, if you'd be willing to maybe make trailers or teasers for various episodes. We should call them tumbleweeds, just rolling through wherever the wind blows with no sturdy base. I'm not sure what that's referring to. We had a planetarium and a pool in high school. Wow, that sounds like a really good high school. A planetarium and a pool? I didn't have either of those things. Say 2 Our Fathers and 1 Hail Mary. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know what any of that means. My honors English teacher was obsessed with Shakespeare. She drove me insane, borderline idol level. That could be a problem. I got a great complete works of Shakespeare over here from like 1916. It's one of my most prized possessions. Maybe we could read it together sometime. To her credit, she gave me excellent scores on those papers. They need socialization. Absolutely the dumbest thing anyone says is they need socialization. If you don't look at, I mean, are you on the internet? Do you see like school fights and stuff like that on the internet? It's just constant. It's a zoo. It's a state-sponsored juvenile detention program. That's what government schools are. I'm really trying to call them government schools so people know. Public schools teach people to click up, get shy, or pick up the worst habits they can. Yep. I hated Shakespeare when I read him in high school, but when I look back now, I love the stories I read. Dude, Shakespeare is great. So something amazing that's happened to my brain over the last 5 years that I'll just share with you guys because I think it might encourage you. So when I started going to a primitive Baptist church 7 years ago, the only Bible I had read was a New King James version. It's actually sitting right here. Yo, this Bible, I stole this Bible from the Salvation Army when I was doing community service in college. I just saw it on a shelf, and I had been wanting to read the Bible. I was still like I wouldn't call myself an atheist. I was probably like a classical theist back in college. But I was doing community service at the Salvation Army, and I literally just took this Bible off the shelf and took it home with me. And it's the first Bible I ever read, and I've got notes in here about how long it would take me to read it. It says 1 chapter a day, 7 days a week, 3.232 years. That's 3 years, 2 months, and 24 days. And that was on 11:52 p.m., December 2nd, 2012. And so I was planning on finishing it by February 26, 2016. I definitely didn't. But yeah, if you know the New King James Version, it's just easier to read than the King James Version. But when I became a primitive, not even when I became, but when I started going, no, it was when I became a primitive Baptist. When I became a primitive Baptist in 2017, the church gave me a King James version of the Bible. And that's the first, I got really serious about reading the Bible at that point. And people are like, oh, the King James Version is so hard to read. It's not accessible to normal people. It is absolutely accessible to normal people. Don't listen to people who tell you that. It's absolutely accessible. And once you start reading it, you do get used to it and you learn a lot of things. And what's more, you realize how shallow our sense of aesthetics are and how shallow our sense of scripture is, that we think that we need to make it accessible, right? No, you need to make your brain smarter. You need to work on, and once I started reading the King James, here's the crazy thing that happened. Give me a second. I'll show you. So this is a complete works of Shakespeare that I got, I think, from a used bookstore for nothing. And it's terrific. I'm going to find a sonnet if I can. Once I started reading the King James, I would pop this thing open and I would read. And I suddenly realized that I was able to just read it much more naturally. It came so much easier to me after I had been studying the King James for some time, probably many years. Sonnets to sundry notes of music. Yeah, let's turn it to a sonnet and read it and see if I sound like a dummy when I try to read it. 13:15. So, and I'm just saying that this is a good one of many good reasons to read the King James Version. It is the most aesthetic. You guys want to read a sonnet? Let's read a sonnet. I love reading to y'all. I love it when people read to me and I assume that other people like the same thing. Maybe they don't. Live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that hills and valleys, dales and fields, and all the craggy mountains yields. There will we sit upon the rocks and see the shepherds feed their flocks by shallow rivers, by whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. There will I make thee a bed of roses with 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a belt of straw and ivy buds with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, then live with me and be my love. And then the love's answer. If that the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. So that was the first time I read that sonnet. But my point is that by reading the King James, it's accustomed my mind to that style of English, and it's made Shakespeare a lot more enjoyable. So I can just pick up Hamlet or whatever now and just start reading Hamlet, and I kind of understand it a lot easier, and it's much more enjoyable. Several books from high school that I appreciated more. Oh yeah, I wanted to touch on this point, which is that after the regular like homeschool program, Bible, hymn singing, art, reading, snacks, we then will try to go on an adventure if we can, get outside, walk around. And while we're walking, I'll tell them Bible stories. And they love it. I mean, the thing is, like, I'll be like, okay, so where were we in the Bible, guys? Oh, we just learned about Noah. Okay, so Noah. Who comes after Noah? Who do we want? Oh, well, Abraham comes after Noah. Who's Abraham? Oh, well, Abraham. Before he was Abraham, he was called Abram. And Abram, when he was an old man, he was like 70 years old, God told Abram he needs to leave his house, his father's house, and he needs to go down into Egypt. And Abram was kind of a coward. And so when he's going down to Egypt and some guys like his wife, he pretends that she's not his wife, but his sister, so that they won't kill him. And so I'll just tell these stories as as they are in my head. And of course they're not perfect. I don't get everything right, but the story is important because it's giving them an idea like, oh yeah, Abraham. And then I'll say something like, he's the father of many nations. Like it's these pegs that they can hang hooks on. And more importantly, again, they see Uncle Danny taking the most important things as the most important things. All right, back to the chat. I hated Shakespeare when I read him in high school. Now I look back, I love stories I read. Sorry, your teacher drove you crazy. Several books from high school I appreciate more as an adult. Oh my goodness. Many good books in high school, many bad books in high school too. By the way, the good books and the bad books in high school, let's talk about that for a minute. All right, for example, I told you I never did homework. I didn't. I remember I BS'd through all of my reading, probably 11th grade, maybe sophomore year. There's a lot of reading. And I would take the books home and that summer, I remember the summer after that year, I had all these books that I had just taken from school, and I finally picked them up, and they were like The Great Gatsby, for example, was definitely one of them. And I remember reading The Great Gatsby and just being blown away. It was such a good book. And I was so mad at myself for not reading it during the year. But then on the same token, I remember reading, oh my goodness, you guys know The Scarlet Letter? They make people read The Scarlet Letter? It's the worst. The Scarlet Letter is straight up feminist propaganda. And by the way, there's way too much feminist propaganda. Oh, look. Guys, do we want the TV on? Or, oh, okay, just another one came on. I don't even like impressionist art. So many of these are impressionists. Yeah, the Scarlet Letter is trash. Nathaniel Hawthorne is incredibly overrated. The greatest American author from that period is definitely Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick. And the fact that the thing is this, because they're ideologically driven, they choose the vastly inferior Scarlet Letter instead of the vastly superior Moby Dick. And it's like Moby Dick is just a much better book. And every American should have read Moby Dick in high school. But instead they're reading the Scarlet Letter because they have to get the stupid feminist propaganda. Like, let me tell you guys, have you guys noticed that since we stopped putting big scarlet A's on the dresses of the harlots, that we have way more harlots running around? Has anyone else noticed? Am I the only one noticing that there's a ton of whores out there these days? And maybe it's because we don't shame them publicly. Is there any correlation between the failure to shame the whores and the whores being shameless? I'm not an expert. I'm not, I don't have a degree in harlotry prevention. I'm just making an observation that maybe if we did a little bit more to shame the harlots would be a little less shameless. Just throwing that out there. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe you guys see what I'm seeing. Maybe you don't. Love to hear it. Check in the chat. Tell me what you think in the chat. Hymns are fire. I'm just going through the chat now. I love you guys. Hymns are fire. I used to think they were lame, but way more out of them than the double bass contemporary church. Yeah. Hymns are extremely fire. This book, the Old School Hymnal, has got some of the best hymns I've ever heard. And they're incredibly, how do I put it? They're reassuring. They touch your heart. They stick with you. When my little brother passed away, this one, Is Not This the Land of Beulah, just kept me going. I am dwelling on the mountain where the golden sunlight gleams. Oh, a land of wondrous beauty far exceeds my fondest dreams, where the air is pure ethereal, laden with the breath of flowers. They are blooming by the fountain, 'neath the amaranthine bowers. Is not this the land of Beulah, blessed, blessed land of light, where the flowers bloom forever and the sun is always bright? I'll read the last verse too. Oh, the cross has wondrous glory. Oh, I've proved this to be true. When I'm in the way so narrow, I can see a pathway through. And how sweetly Jesus whispers, take the cross, thou needst not fear. For I've trod the way before thee, and the glory lingers near. Is not this the land of Beulah, blessed, blessed land of light, where the flowers bloom forever and the sun is always bright? That's just the first and last verse. There are three others. So good. So good. Yeah, and just the idea that this is even comparable to modern worship music, which is a disaster and a debacle and an abomination and absolutely an insult to every thinking human being. This has lasted hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Several of these hymns are. A great example is 118. Hark the Herald Angels Sing. So Hark the Herald Angels. Did we talk about this during the Christmas show? Hark the Herald Angels Sing might be the greatest song ever written. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. If you read the lyrics to Hark the Herald Angels Sing, it was written by Charles Wesley, who I haven't read him in depth. I think he was an Arminian theologist. I don't really know his theology very well. And there was also his brother, I think John Wesley. Anyway, so I'm not like deep in Arminian theology at all, so forgive me. But he was obviously very influential. I'm pretty sure the entire Methodist Church came out of his theology. But Hark the Herald Angels Sing was written by Wesley, and it was originally, the music is Mendelssohn, Felix Mendelssohn, like incredibly famous composer. So just listen, hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful, all ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. With angelic hosts proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Christ by highest heaven adored, Christ the everlasting Lord. Late in time, behold him come, offspring of a virgin womb. Veiled in flesh, the Godhead see. Hail the incarnate deity. Pleased as man with men to appear, Jesus our Emmanuel here. Hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace. Hail the Son of Righteousness. Light and life to all he brings, risen with healing in his wings. Mild he lays his glory by, born that man no more may die. Born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. Come, desire of nations, come, fix in us thy humble home. Rise, the woman's conquering seed, bruise in us the serpent's head. Adam's likeness now efface, stamp thine image in its place. Second Adam from above, reinstate us in thy love. It is so theological, deeply theological. Rise, the woman's conquering seed, bruise in us the serpent's head. Adam's likeness now efface, stamp thine image in its place. Make us less like Adam, who brought sin into the world. Make us more like Christ, the second Adam from above. Reinstate us in thy love. absolutely incredibly deep. The old hymns are far superior, far superior to modern worship music. And frankly, like, I'm not saying it's heresy. I'm not blaspheming my brother. I'm not saying my brothers aren't my brothers. I am just saying that if you use your brain, okay, if you use your head and you start to think about it and you ask yourself, what glorifies our Lord more? Modern worship music and the way it makes you feel good listening to it. You feel uplifted listening to it. You get into a hypnotic trance listening to it and participating in it. But what is it actually saying? And what glorifies our Lord more? The deep theological truths that have come out of thousands of years of faithful consideration of these things, or that? Or the modern worship music that just makes you feel really good? Is worship about you and you feeling really good and you feeling like you're in the spirit and you thinking that, oh, this is such a worshipful, spirit-filled activity, that grandma can't sit in because it's too loud for her? Or is it about what glorifies God and what he finds pleasant to the ear? And what do you think that is? Do you think that God, is God edified by the positive feelings of man, or is God edified by rightful worship? Those are the questions that you should be considering if you're doing the modern worship thing. Nice find on that. Yeah, the collection's great. Wonderful woman I've been dating for a while now. Homeschools her son. Seems like the most well-adjusted kid in the state. Smart, healthy, even volunteers on his own. Amen. Congratulations, bro. I hope that works out for you. I'm praying for you, man. Based and blessed. So we didn't know this. I mean, I didn't know this until recently, but we know each other personally in real life. He lives in Maryland and we do some activism type stuff together. So love that. Love you, brother. Math is great to teach. Almost very important then, combined with cooking, sharing food. Yes, sharing food, making a pizza together, putting pepperoni around so each piece will have the same amount. Good idea. Someone marry this man, or you're all hearing this program. If that's not dad material, I don't know what it is. Very based end to end. Might as well post on YouTube. Low effort, couldn't hurt. Yeah, I think I will. Probably what we'll do, Aaron, we'll just cut out the relevant stuff and we'll make we don't have to do a lot of editing. Just cut out the sections where we're actually talking about the subject matter that's relevant. King James is from the 1500s, I believe. Look at the Song of Solomon, KJV, compared to Shakespeare's poetry. The language and structure are very similar. Good observation. I'm dying. Harlotry prevention. I'm good. Make slut shaming great again. It's not, I love them, and that's why I think we need to shame them. Okay. I just think it's better for them if they live in a culture that says, hey, don't be adulterous. Call it what it is. Simple enough. Yep. That one is such proof of God's divine inspiration of the writing. Yeah, I don't know if you're talking about Hark the Herald Angels Sing or in the Dwelling in the Land of Beulah, but thank you. Soli Deo Gloria. That's right. Soli Deo Gloria. Amen. All right. So we've covered homeschool. We've covered what NIBLINGS are. We've covered so we'll walk them somewhere. Last time we went to get ice cream, we've gone to the playground. We've gone to the library. Again, the library is a disaster. Don't go to the library if you can avoid it, but it is good. Like, I've got books from the library. I go to the library to get books for myself, but I know what I'm getting. And it's like the problem is that the kids section of the library is designed by a bunch of woke pedagogues who think that they have to, it's just clearly they're indoctrinating kids with these books. And it's just, I don't like taking them to the library. I don't like taking the kids to the library. I think libraries in theory are a great idea. Maybe not, honestly. Like, I know it's probably super unpopular to say, but there's a good chance that libraries have just become, like all aspects of the state, they've been co-opted by this radical movement, and they might just at this point be doing more harm than good. Yeah, I don't need to pontificate on that too much. I don't think. I've got some theories about how all institutions eventually become useless. It's just some sort of inevitable. It's like when you first do something. Okay, when we first started the country, we were as free as we were ever going to get, right? there was just no government, right? We had the Declaration of Independence, we had the Articles of Confederation, and then for 11 years that's what we had, and then 1789 we go ahead and we do the Constitution, and it's like as free as it'll ever get. And so the positive value in the federal government at that point was like max, right? It was the most it had ever been, and the downsides were minimum. And then, so you've got high value at the beginning, and maybe it generates more value, right? So like, let's say we have like high value at the beginning, and it generates more value, right? And there's low cost at the beginning, but the costs go up too. At some point in the future, those cross. Like the costs go up faster than the utility goes up. And so you've got a situation where the net utility of government is less than the net cost of government. And then the question is basically, is this like a fundamental law of institutions from the federal government to like any university or any corporation, where like initially in the beginning, the value add is extremely high and the cost goes up and up and up, and eventually they just cross such that the net utility is less pretty much forever? I don't know if that's a rock solid law of institutional economics, but I gotta, like, even the like I look at the great institutions, the Catholic Church. I'm not a Roman Catholic, but I'm a lover of the art and the architecture that it's produced and the effects it's had on Western civilization. Is it still in net utility? I don't know. Maybe it's like that's a really slow. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that institutions don't necessarily have to become, like, it's just some sort of law of organization, have to become useless and net negatives on society. But that's basically the theory, and I just hope that I'm wrong. Okay. Well, I don't have anything else for you today, and I'm not going to drag it out. I really am glad that you are all able to make it here today. I hope that it was edifying for you and hopefully educational for you. I hope that it leads you to consider homeschooling either your own children if you have them or are going to have them in the future, or other people's children. Look, like if you've got parents in your social circle, if you are like a trustworthy, like normal person, you might be okay like homeschooling kids for 3 hours a month or whatever. I've got a really good relationship with my sister-in-law. She trusts me with her children. I've had to earn that trust by doing this a number of times. We live in a weird world right now where like you can't really trust people, and so it might be strange, but like I don't, like in the ideal world, like in my ideal world, it wouldn't be super weird for one of your friends to like homeschool your kids, every once a week or whatever, right? Because you would have high trust and cohesion in those communities. And I think that we need to be aiming for that. Yeah, the world is dangerous. Yeah, people are freaks and disgusting. And like somehow we have to find ways to build trust with one another such that we can live with trust with one another, right? Like, so we can share the responsibility of raising children. I mean, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I don't know if that's true, but I know for a fact with both of my older brothers and their families, there are 6 kids between them, having my parents and I nearby makes it a lot easier because you've got babysitters nearby, people that are willing to watch your children and that will love your children, as much as is humanly possible. So that's been a real blessing for me. I would encourage you all to consider like homeschooling, like I said, but also consider living near your family, living near your parents, living near your siblings. I think that it's helpful to my brothers, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you. Oh, yeah, based and blessed. Thank you. Yep. Okay, real quick, we've got one more thing. Thank you for mentioning that. I can check my Telegram. On the 18th of February this month, we have got a protest at Loyalty Bookstores in Silver Spring, Maryland. Okay, and we are going to do that. Did you message me directly? 18th of February in Silver Spring, Maryland. Let me see. I don't have anything from you, but I'm just going to talk about it. Yeah, 12 p.m. the protest starts. There's a drag queen story hour. Hey, actually, Aaron, could you make sure that we get this out there? I might even just post a video about it. But basically, look, they're doing drag queen story hour at this bookstore. I know a lot of good guys are going to be there, and they're going to shut the thing down basically by standing there. I'm going to go. I'm going to film, and hopefully, I mean, I don't want to get arrested. I really don't want to get arrested. But just keep your eyes out on the 18th of February. That's this month, 12 days from now, in Silver Spring, Maryland, Loyalty Bookstores. That's where the protest will be. That's where the Drag Queen Story Hour is going to be held. And so we're going to protest that, and we're going to hopefully shut it down. Lord willing, it will go well. You all know I am 100% in favor of nonviolent direct action. That means civil disobedience where it's called for, but always nonviolent civil disobedience. That is the only way I would participate in this protest if I thought that was going to be the case, and I do believe that'll be the case. In any case, I'm going to record it and talk about it on the show probably. That's all the info you need to put out. Great metro system nearby that should make it easy to get to. Yep. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. If you're in the area, I would really encourage you to show up. Even if you're far away, if you can make it there to do this kind of protest, when we film it and it gets out there, the effect is exponentially greater than just the protest itself locally. So the more people that show up, the bigger the effect is on camera, the more impactful it is. I can't tell you how much it would mean to me if you showed up. 100% peaceful, 100% nonviolent. That's what I'd encourage you to do here to close out the show. Thank you again for coming. It's been another episode of Liberty and Justice. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Support us on Locals. That's justiceleague.locals.com. If you want to make a dent in the entire Overton, moving the Overton window to the right, but you don't want to be on all the different social media platforms, go to whitehorsesocial.com. I'm actively doing customer research right now. So I'm taking one-on-one calls with people to talk about White Horse Social and to learn about their worldviews and the issues that matter to them so that we can use a team of creative writers and the technology that we've built to schedule and distribute content. And we want to manage your social media profiles for the good of the kingdom, for the good of the conservative movement. Go to whitehorsesocial.com, sign up with your email. If you shoot me a note on DMs, we can hop on a call. I will hop on a call one-on-one with you. I want to talk about your worldview. I want to talk about the issues that matter to you, how you think about those issues. And I wanted for free, at no cost to you, I want to use your social media accounts to get the message out on the issues that you care about most. Okay. So it's social media marketing for Christian and conservative activists at no cost. Yeah, I know that sounds too good to be true. It's a very difficult problem, but I'm working with a very smart team, a very small, but very smart team to try to solve it. Again, the Overton window is the window of things that you're allowed to say. For 100 years, the left has been moving it to the left. I want to reverse that trend. I want to start moving it to the right. That's what we're doing at White Horse Social. So go to whitehorsesocial.com and sign up and look out for an email from me so that we can hop on a call and talk about your worldview, the things that matter to you most. This has been another episode of Liberty and Justice. I'm Justice Epen. Good evening and God bless.